right, great. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's Chief Data and Technology Officer Summit. This is the fifth in our six-part series running June through November. I'm Caitlin Halferty, Director of the IBM AI Accelerator and host of our Summit Series. Today, we have convened experts to share insights on the hybrid multi-cloud journey we are all on. This is really a culmination of the topics we've explored in this Summit Series to date across leading in turbulent times, AI ethics and trust, data privacy and governance, and so key to today's topic, data and technology in partnership. As chief data and technology leaders, we tend to start with a value proposition. A recent study on the hybrid cloud advantage, we've made that paper available here today for you. We found that the value derived from a full hybrid multi-cloud platform and operating model at scale is 2.5 times the value derived from a single platform, single cloud vendor approach. More and more research is suggesting that a platform approach accelerates value with scale, and we're getting there. By 2023, organizations expect to be using at least 10 clouds from a growing number of vendors. However, only a quarter of businesses say they have a holistic multi-cloud management strategy. And though 90% of companies globally say they were, quote, on the cloud by last year, 2019, only about 20% of their workloads have moved to a cloud environment. Our panelists today have some great insights around what has accelerated these moves for them in 2020 and offer an important perspective that why the technology component of these choices is so critical. These are not just technology stories. It's the integration into data and business transformation, the associated organizational and cultural considerations that really correlates to success. We've received some great questions from attendees as part of the registration process. And a reminder, please post your questions in chat now. We'll have plenty of time for live Q&A at the end. Let me call out a couple of these questions. One was, how do you approach organizational change in large enterprises moving to a multi-cloud approach? Our panelists today have some great insights on what they are doing within their own organizations and departments to prioritize organizational change and culture. Here at IBM, this is one of our 4 key pillars within our Chief Data Office: data, technology, business process transformation, and organizational considerations. So one investment area in talent transformation has been to formalize these opportunities for skills development around a multi-cloud approach at a very detailed level. So, be happy to share more about these courses and certification opportunities. Another question was around, are we interested to create a space for nonprofit and social enterprises as part of our hybrid multi-cloud management? Absolutely. One example use case we'll share a bit more about today that I'm really passionate about and excited about is called Operational Risk Insights. This is a cloud-native application first developed by a very talented member of my team, now spans many, many contributors globally. It's an automated, comprehensive, Watson-powered alert service. It assesses supply chain risk events globally. Think earthquakes, hurricanes, other natural weather disasters. More than 1,000 data sources monitored frequently to synthesize millions of records in real time, deliver risk event impact to more than 25,000 supply chain and data center sites worldwide. When COVID-19 hit earlier this year, the team worked very quickly to overlay this data to include a pandemic tracking feature that enables users to really visualize the severity of COVID-19 outbreak. Also includes a social vulnerability index to really pinpoint disaster relief efforts. So again, that's one that we've made available to several nonprofit organizations and to our clients and customers, and I think is an example of that partnership. One final point I'd love to make, we're seeing that many enterprises are looking to pull all this together for efficient and effective decision-making. In the research study I referenced earlier, 66% of advanced cloud businesses say a single pane of glass management approach is needed to ensure visibility and control costs, across all of our clouds, vendors, clusters, all the data we have a responsibility to manage and maintain and serve to the business. So we will also hit on how we've built that out internally, our cognitive enterprise data platform, how our products such as our cloud packs enable that, and hear from our leading client panelists about their integrated implementation approaches. So as always, thank you so much for being here with us today, for making the investment of your time to join us. Please, again, chat your questions in. We'll have plenty of time for live Q&A. And with that, let me turn it over to Dave Matheson, our CEO of CDO Club, to kick us off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Caitlin, for that overview and for your kind introduction. Welcome back, everyone. It's great to see you all again. I'm David Matheson, the founder and CEO of the CDO Club and CTO Summit. I'm really excited to take this journey to the cloud with you today. We're going to start with an overview of the issues with our guest, Inderpal Bhandari, the Global Chief Data Officer at IBM. Great to see you again, Inderpal.
Great to see you there.
A recent industry study suggests that only 25% of organizations have a holistic multi-cloud management strategy. How is IBM building out their multi-cloud management strategy, and how can other companies and CDOs listening build and accelerate the same in their organizations?
Dave, actually, that statistic related to company statistic, which usually talks about the movement of workloads to the public cloud and from major enterprises and so forth. I mean, what we know is that's a small percentage. You pick your number, whether it's 10 or 15 or 20, but it's still a very, very small percentage of critical business workloads that actually run on the public cloud. Couple that with your statistic about having a holistic multi-cloud strategy. As people gain an awareness of why those workloads haven't moved, they will start thinking about, yeah, we actually do need a multi-cloud strategy. And the main reason the workloads haven't moved is because the very reason that a critical workload is located somewhere or being done in some fashion, there's usually a very good business reason for that. I mean, if you're running a critical workload, say in Germany versus the US, there's a good reason why you did that. If you have a workload on-prem, again, there's a very good reason why you did that. It might be very concerned about the sensitivity of the data or whatever. What we realized is that the reason the workloads are not moving is because people essentially want you to some extent meet the workload where it is. And then you come up with an overall transformation strategy that includes the public cloud, but also includes whatever on-prem, private clouds, other clouds that you have in your environment, so that you are able to do a holistic transformation, end-to-end transformation, as opposed to let's focus on this one workload, try to move it, have a massive project, and then that creates all kinds of complexities. So that's our hybrid multi-cloud approach. That's what the company put forward as our key strategy going forward. But primarily the motivation was that this was going to help get those workloads in an optimal configuration from a hybrid multi-cloud standpoint. And that's also what we're doing internally. We've got the cognitive enterprise data platform that we've developed, which is IBM's central data and AI enablement platform for the company, the internal company, and then using that as a showcase for clients and customers. But when I say central, that's just logically, it's central. Physically, it's actually completely distributed. It has a hybrid multi-cloud environment. That's really where what we operate in within IBM. So our approach for doing that has been obviously centered around workloads. We have realized that this notion of meeting the workload where it is critical for end-to-end transformation of the enterprise. Otherwise, you just end up doing point projects and things like that. But I think as a chief data officer, what I've also realized is you have to meet the data where it is. Just as you have to meet the workload where it is, you have to meet the data where it is to truly scale at a global level, as we pretty much have to do. We are obviously at the forefront of a hybrid multi-cloud approach, and both from an application as well as from a data standpoint.
Kudos to you and the team, and congratulations. IBM's going to spin off a significant part of their business, and you're going to double down on the cloud and AI. I'd love to hear from your perspective a little bit more about this historic move. IBM stock is up, so analysts and investors are pretty happy about this direction.
Yeah, but you hit the nail on the head, Dave. It's all about focus. The strategy has been around hybrid multi-cloud and AI, and that's what this move is about. It's about essentially establishing that focus, unlocking the value. The bottom line for us, it's all about doubling down on that hybrid multi-cloud and AI strategy.
What value are you seeing from that holistic enterprise cloud management strategy?
We have a lot of material in terms of how we are bringing workloads to a hybrid multi-cloud setup. I'll kind of restrict my remarks for the moment to data. We did the cognitive enterprise data platform for IBM. The reason we did that was because it had to be in direct support of IBM's own enterprise transformation into an AI enterprise. And one of the things that we've noted, you've got to meet the data where it is to be able to truly scale this. So to give you an example, with regard to our clients, we do business across the world, and we have a really, really large number of clients as well. And to bring all that together in a way that's really efficient, really up to date, and allows us to then infuse AI into the process, because for that reason, the data has to be pretty much up to quality for AI to work. The hybrid multi-cloud approach is critical to pull that off. Different countries have different regulations. It means, you may not be able to move data around. It means that somebody who has access to data in one country, even if that person were to travel to another country, they may not have access to data. There are all kinds of regulations, and they are different and they're evolving. You've got to respect those regulations. You've also got to protect the data from a security standpoint. You have to protect the privacy of people if you're holding data that's personal data. There's all these complexities that go beyond the simple functional requirement of putting a 360 view of a client. And if you're operating at that global scale, there really, in my mind, there is really no other way to approach it than to support a hybrid environment, which potentially involves multiple clouds, as well as multiple private clouds and on-prem. So there is really no other way to do it. That's been very complex previously because nobody has taken that problem on head on. But in terms of a truly hybrid multi-cloud approach, so first you have to kind of lay a foundation. We did that by acquiring Red Hat and specifically doubling down on their OpenShift platform, which essentially allows portability across all kinds of environments, all the way from our mainframe down to all kinds of public clouds, AWS, Azure, et cetera, you name it. On top of that, we are layering abstractions for data. We have these cloud packs that we've brought forward to the market. There's a cloud pack for data, cloud pack for automation, cloud pack for multi-cloud management. You can think of those as a layer of abstraction, which essentially allows you to do the kinds of operations you need to do for data, need to do for automation, or to manage across multiple clouds, and from a single pane of glass. It enables you to do all that easily because there's a lot of pre-built capabilities that are already there in terms of abstraction. So you don't have to write that code from scratch. What this eventually then allows you to do is two things. One is workloads and code. If you write it once, you can run it anywhere appropriately, right? With the safeguards I talked about, with the privacy, security, all those safeguards, as well as with regard to data, you can ingest it once and access it anywhere, again, appropriately. It sets that foundation and the layer of abstraction that sits above all these environments so that you're able to pull all this off in a way that's easy to do, as opposed to previously when it just wasn't possible.
For our listeners who missed it, we had a great session with Chris Wright, the CTO at Red Hat, in the episode called CDOs and CTOs in Partnership. And you've really clearly hit on the value you're seeing from taking a hybrid multi-cloud approach. Taking that one step further, Inderpal, what use cases has IBM developed on this hybrid multi-cloud environment? And how can data leaders joining our summit today start building some use cases of their own?
And I think the examples I gave earlier, if you think in terms of, in my mind, the biggest overall use case is the data and AI enablement platform for an enterprise. That needs to be on a hybrid multi-cloud framework. Otherwise, it's going to be limited. You won't be able to scale it. The sub-use cases, if you will, that cut across the entire enterprise, things like your client data, building a client 360 view, assessing risk across our full supply chain, all these big end-to-end processes where we've infused AI in our journey to making IBM into an AI enterprise. Those are much easier to do if you do have a hybrid multi-cloud foundation, because you can meet the data where it is, and you can also make sure that all these, what I call non-functional requirements, things like security, privacy, governance, all that stuff, that you're able to do that consistently and appropriately. Not identically, right? It's never identical because different areas have different regulations and all that stuff. So the framework has to be able to support that kind of flexibility and make it easy for the developer as well as the data scientist so that they can navigate their pipelines in a way that's very effective and as seamless and as powerful as you might, when you just operate in one single environment. That's the goal, to get it down to that level through these layers of abstraction that I talked about with our cloud packs, so that the developer and the data scientist is able to operate much more effectively. So Client 360, our supply chain that runs across our full enterprise, I think those are excellent examples of use cases that lend themselves to having such an approach. But if you take any end-to-end process, like our lead to cash process, digital marketing process, anywhere where you're operating globally, you're having data coming in from multiple locations globally with different restrictions, different requirements, you're going to need this kind of an approach to be able to pull it off. Or, you could spend months and years doing it, which is the other, which is the alternative.
Right. Has COVID-19 sped up the pace of hybrid cloud environment deployments?
Yes, absolutely. With COVID-19 and a lot of people working from home, in fact, that it's become more the rule than the exception now. That has accelerated the journey to the cloud. What is evolving is this acceleration towards a hybrid multi-cloud approach on account of COVID-19. And I think that you'll see as the emphasis on digital transformation, which also is being accelerated by COVID-19, when that comes together with the cloud, from a digital transformation, enterprise transformation standpoint, the natural foundation is a hybrid multi-cloud foundation, because that's the only way you can go after a complicated, globally distributed, end-to-end process. And if you don't do the end-to-end transformation, you're not going to get the full value, which is why when we look at it from a hybrid multi-cloud standpoint versus, say, a straight public cloud or a straight on-prem, that kind of approach, we see multiples of additional value by going with the hybrid multi-cloud approach, 2.5 times over public cloud, and many more times over on-prem and so on. And it's because of that reason. You're able to look at the end-to-end process, transform it, and you're able to accelerate the implementation by meeting the data where it is, as well as the workload where it is, and then optimizing that, as you appropriately need to across these different environments, as opposed to just saying a one-size-fits-all, I'm going to move everything or bust.
You bet. And next up, we're going to explore these issues more deeply on a panel featuring CDOs from the AES Corporation, Halliburton, and the United States Department of the Air Force. Let's get started. How important do you feel a hybrid cloud platform is today as a strategic advantage for corporations? Let's start with Eileen.
It's critical for the Department of the Air Force because we work across military departments. So it's important that we can actually speak with our sisters and push data back and forth through our sister services between Army and the Department of the Navy. So it's critical.
How important is a hybrid cloud strategy platform as a strategic advantage to corporations today?
Thank you, David. Strategically, it's very important to drive the digital transformation and to become a digital-centric company. Cloud and hybrid cloud is going to be the key enabler to drive the fast innovation, experimentation, data mindset, agile delivery. And if you look at many corporations, it's about unlocking the value of data, having the right data strategy. What accelerates this whole transformation is the cloud-first hybrid cloud strategy.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Over to our friend Satyam. How important is a hybrid cloud platform as a strategic advantage for both Halliburton and corporations overall today?
Thank you, David. I'll talk in terms of what is needed in terms of the oil and gas industry, and Halliburton does play a significant role in it. Across the oil well life cycle, the complexity of the data is significant, and the value proposition is significant. So each of the players in this industry, whether the service companies, the operators, they have to work together in this scenario to maximize what we call the asset value. So since the complexity of data is there, the life cycle is there, hybrid cloud plays that role of bringing the concept together in a more optimal manner. Because if you look at public cloud, that it's sort of challenge, because the criticality of the mix of the data is very important. What data resides where, and who can share, And though there are a lot of proprietary stuff since we are a very highly regulated industry. Second, just from the ownership point of view, the cost of ownership of this platform is significant, and we have to look at that part, especially when we are talking about, say, exploration area, when you have petabytes of data, it could be an expensive business. So you have to really think about which phase of the oil well life cycle you are doing and how do you optimally put that into the system.
Those are great points. Thank you so much, Satyam. Eileen, let's start right at the beginning. For the many viewers out there who are just getting started on their journey to the cloud, what advice can you share regarding early stage approaches to incorporating a true cloud strategy?
I think that the first piece is to make sure that you have change champions across your leadership to really help you accelerate change quickly. I think that is the critical piece that you have to make the investment to make sure that you have change champions at all levels, tactical, operational, and strategic.
Thank you, Eileen. And back to Sanjeev. Can you tell us about AES Corp's journey to the hybrid cloud?
We have a comprehensive strategy started the last year. We are completing all the Microsoft cloud migrations by this year and continue to work with Google Cloud on the lot of data strategy, data fabric, and AI execution, enabling us to deliver the value faster. Example, all our AI execution is driving 2 to 3x returns within a year. So it's been great success. So we have a clear roadmap for next 3 years where we are going to be completely cloud first strategy. And there is some hybrid in the private cloud where the confidential data is needed. So we are very balanced and really very strategically executing the overall journey for next 3 years.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Back over to Satyam, same question. We'd love to hear a little bit more about Halliburton's journey to the cloud. Can you share some insights with us?
Absolutely. So at the very beginning, let me tell, Halliburton was founded in 1919. So it's almost 100 years old company, one of the largest providers of products and services in the energy sector. When it comes to cloud technology and the implementation of digital technologies, I think we have been leading that aspect of transformation since 2014, actually, when we announced the concept of building the platform. So if you remember, most of these things are in softwares, in pieces and puzzles coming together, but now we actually announced a platform which is not heard of in the energy sector at that point. And today, iEnergy is one of our hybrid cloud solution, which is being used globally by hundreds of customers around the world. That's one. Second, we were the first one to announce what is called OpenEarth.community, which is a consortium-based platform for hybrid cloud. Today, that is being used by DevOps and other things, other processes. So in that sense, Halliburton has been always leading in that aspect of leveraging the digital transformation, the data, and the cloud computing paradigm.
Thank you, Satyam. Great lead into the next question. Can you share your thoughts on crafting data strategies around the move to the cloud?
In the Department of Defense, we have a DoD data strategy. It just got published this week, and it uses the tenets of visible, accessible, understandable, linked, trustworthy, interoperable, and secure. That's a lot, but it's really the core tenets to make things work. And the cloud is the key enabler to make that actually operational and real. So visible, accessible, but also linked and trustworthy, fused together with secure and interoperable. It's really the core tenets that not just the Department of the Air Force, but we work across our big Department of Defense to make sure that we're working in concert with each other.
Thank you.
For us to really accelerate and move fast and really drive agile value delivery, only way to do it is the cloud first strategy. All our transformation execution is happening on the cloud.
Dr. Priyadarshi, were the goals of moving to the cloud tied to your strategic goals and enterprise-wide digital transformation goals?
Absolutely. So, our mission has been always to maximize the asset value. So in olden days, people would say asset means the hydrocarbon assets. And over the last 10 years, we have realized that data is a significant asset. And we were actually one of the pioneers of data and information management. In roughly 2014, when we started platform culture into this industry. So it actually ties very well into our strategy because now you are maximizing the asset value on the data. And that leads to automation, which is significant need, especially in the, if in fact from 2014 to 2020, what has happened? Not one disruption. We are in the era what is called compounded disruption now. So if you think of it strategically, that digital transformation or what I call digital disruption is actually critical for us. And for us as Halliburton, digital is not a separate strategy. It is the part of the core strategy. So hence it is like not only helping enterprise, but actually we are helping our partners around the world.
That's such a great example for our listeners. And Eileen, you contributed to this all-important federal data strategy action plan designed to leverage data as a strategic asset to drive more value for the American public. Can you share the vision for this action plan and maybe tell us a little bit about your contributions and if and how that relates to the cloud and the hybrid cloud?
All data officers across the federal space had an opportunity to provide input through a public commenting component, and all of those comments are adjudicated. So they come in through the public, including all of the federal data officers helped drive the actual actions, but also the deliverables. So last December, the Office of Management and Budget published the first federal data strategy action plan, which had 20 overarching entities. And today, many of us are working on the deliverables of those data strategy action plan items. And so I think it's really a collaborative crowdsourcing solution, which really made sure that we had an active voice in how we move forward.
Back to Sanjeev, as core data storage and applications become cloudified, this creates challenges, constraints, limitations generated by the myriad activities across disparate infrastructure. So how is AES overcoming the challenges to managing hybrid cloud storage and development environments?
You know, one of the things, David, we did is we really clearly defined our cloud journey and the roadmap. As part of that, you know, we are managing, optimizing the data storage as part of that cloud journey. You know, there are few very strategic, important things we do. We really defined what is our data strategy across the various functions, where we want to unlock the value of data. That's very clear. We also established the data governance and data security aspects of it. And also we took a latency into consideration to make sure that the backup, et cetera, is happening in the same cloud where the data is. But at the same time, how do we do the multi-cloud management? You know, we are exploring the right solutions. Important point is we are optimizing continuously. You know, we started this journey last year, especially in the data side, because we didn't have any artificial intelligence initiatives before I joined the company. So it was kind of a good fresh start. So we took the opportunity to define these very strategically. That's what we are executing.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Same question, Satyam. How is Halliburton overcoming the challenges of managing these hybrid cloud storage and development environments, single pane of glass view as a control tower, if you will, into the entire operation?
Yeah, so, you know, if I have to say in one sentence, we are doing very well because we've been in this journey for quite some time. But more importantly, what we do is, like, for example, on October 8th, we announced what is called Digital Well Operations solution, which is actually takes the hybrid cloud and its application to the real world, so you can do things in real time. And that is what shows you that the power of management, and whether it's in single pane, how it works. Otherwise, theoretically, there are many ways to do it. The second part is very important. Unlike many industries that will talk only about artificial intelligence as one key to digital transformation, for us, actually, it is a science and engineering component is very big. Right? We are a very scientific and engineering oriented company or industry. So we have to augment with the artificial intelligence part of it. We can't say this versus that. And then the human cognition is the next important part for our industry. So you have to not only bring the data part, the modeling part, and the human cognition into one platform. So you can make real-time decisions, which can actually reduce the cost, because for us, it is the cost to produce oil should be as low as possible.
Yeah. Final question for you, Eileen, is what advice would you give them when evaluating and or implementing a hybrid cloud strategy program?
Start small and scale as quickly as possible. And don't focus on a single technology, but think about how different pieces are going to fuse, because the technology we have today is only going to continue to emerge and grow. So we really have to think about open standards and how we really focus on interoperability across the various clouds.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for joining us today, Eileen, and thanks for all your work at the Department of the Air Force. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Final question for Sanjeev. What advice would you give when evaluating and or implementing a hybrid cloud platform strategy?
There are a couple of things. I think first thing is, having clear digital strategy, digital transformation roadmap that's tightly linked to the business strategy, business value creation is critical. And really linking the cloud strategy to digital strategy execution is extremely important. That way, the value creation and execution is all in line with that. The strategy aligned with the cloud journey and the roadmap. The other key dimension is having the right team. And third element is the data strategy. As you highlighted, I think it's going to be extremely important. Be very clear, because most of the companies can unlock the value of the data in the future. As you know, digital transformation is also significantly focused, should be on the cultural transformation, right? So all this is new to companies like AES, industrial companies. We are able to accelerate with this kind of cultural transformation.
Great advice, Sanjeev. Thank you. Same. Satyam, what advice would you give them on evaluating and or implementing a hybrid cloud platform strategy?
Yeah, so in fact, since the beginning of this year or December 2019, we can actually tell you that what we have been talking about for a few years, we have been actually implementing it with a lot of our partners. Like, 2019, nobody would say, oh, let's go accelerate the cloud implementation. But after 2019 December, we get more calls to our cloud team saying, come and help us to implement. So we know exactly what to do there. So one of the things that is very important for us, first of all, whether it's multi-cloud or not, it all depends on which geographical location we are talking about. So in that context, we have to do these things. And the first thing is to look at what their complexity of the data information management structure looks like, how mature they are in their digital journey. Third is look at their talent transformation. So we actually build solutions for what is called talent transformation as well. And the fourth thing is that how fast, in what areas of the business or which phase of the well life cycle they want to actually increase the value proposition. Because this is a journey, it doesn't happen overnight. And you can scale it up step by step, because the risks associated are there, and finding the data itself is a challenge in many companies. So each company is very customized, but very simple facts have to be there. What is the current layout looks like? What is their strategy? What their talent pool looks like? And then how do I build a roadmap for the solutions that will create them maximum value? Concept of talent transformation is very critical in oil and gas industry, and I'm sure it is true in the wider energy industry. Because if you look at it, where they do the training, large portion of the training that is provided is to the technical and operational people, right? For example, in say drilling, we will not send a driller if they are not trained, so to say. Correct? But when it comes to digital technologies, many of the world's, not only just oil and gas, but many of the companies have not trained their technology folks actually. Most of the people who are doing Hadoops of the world or Google Cloud, these are people who have learned on their own. So you can't have a pre-baked talent for free. You see? So the industry really need to invest in the talent transformation in the digital technologies. And if you look at any of the cloud platform, look at the number of solutions they provide. It's like probably taking like 5 master's degree if you want to actually go through the whole spectrum, right? So how do you expect that? So I call it a simple complexity, right? Because you said cloud is one solution, but underneath cloud, you have a lot of things to do. And for us, domain is a big part. The technology is another part. So we spent a significant amount of this process on talent transformation, and we have helped like around the world actually. We don't just do it for ourselves. We actually do it for our customers or partners, as we call them, so that the industry can be ready for what I call the energy transition landscape. We are in a unique position as a service company. Not only we have to do cultural change within our own enterprise, but luckily I've been engaged in many of these activities around the world. So I can actually look and compare and contrast the cultural change parameters that are needed in different parts of the world. And it's very unique. So that is that becomes one more component in terms of how do you put the solution together for the hybrid cloud. Because in some countries, for example, they are not ready to move to the cloud because there is no, within their geographical boundary condition, there is no cloud offerings. Right? In that case, we have built solutions called field earth appliance that can be put into their premises, and so it will look like a private cloud or but hybrid cloud solution in a private environment, because they don't want to leave their data outside their geographical boundaries. And that we have done that in Latin America. So the cultural aspect is very different, but after all, it's all oil and gas industry, but still solutioning is dependent on where we are.
Well, that's great advice. I want to thank you all so much. We know how busy you are. We're very grateful that you took time today to share with your peers. And just want to remind everybody, to everyone watching, our panelists are all going to be available for the live Q&A, which is about to start right now. Great, everybody. Welcome back and welcome to the cloud. I tried to get Mother Nature to cooperate and put some multiple clouds in the background there, but we got beautiful blue skies today. So welcome to CDO Club World Headquarters in Long Beach, where the surf is up, and we're going to continue on in our conversation. Thanks again to our speakers, Inderpal Bandari, Eileen Vedrine, Dr. Satyam Priyadarshi, and Sanjeev Adala. You guys did a great job on that panel. And now we're going to open it up to questions from our participants. And I can say 2 requests we get most often is we want more time for Q&A, we want more time for networking. I'm not sure exactly how we're going to do virtual networking, but we're definitely going to answer your questions today. Caitlin already covered a couple of them. Let's get right to it. We had loads of questions for this session. It may be that the big news on Thursday of IBM's hyper focus on AI and the cloud was received very well by investors and shareholders. So I appreciate your call coming in today. So first question, why now? Every one of you on the panel mentioned that in 2019 you prioritized moving to the hybrid cloud, but that these things started accelerating this year in 2020. So my question for all of you is, what's driving this prioritization for your organization? Let's start with Dr. Priyadarshi from Halliburton.
Excellent question, David. You see, why now? I think with technology evolution, the pace at which it's growing, I think any time is right now, right? So I think it is, if we have to keep up pace of any industry with the technology evolution, I think we have to do it. But if we just look at the oil and gas industry, as I said in my earlier comment, that it is all about compounded disruption. And if you want to be a player in energy transition, how do you reach that point that you remain a significant player? And if you want to prioritize what aspect of it that you can optimize and actually reduce your cost as we grow into this journey, then hybrid cloud and multi-cloud approaches are actually the right solution to take us there and keep up with the industry 4.0 revolution.
Thanks, Satyam. Same question for Sanjeev. In your session, you mentioned that they didn't have an AI practice at AES before you got there. And you also mentioned that you started the journey to the cloud last year, but everything got accelerated in 2020. Can you tell us a little bit about why the shift in the move to 5th gear to get hybrid cloud deployed?
One of the 2 things, right? One is, we really wanted to accelerate our digital transformation. If you look at, right, with the climate crisis, renewables focus is going to be significant going forward, and renewables are data rich. So we see significant value creation through data and AI in that space. So we see that the future of energy is digital. We're also seeing with the COVID experience, acceleration of adoption of digital within AES and also in the customer landscape. We see that customer experience innovation, really driving personalization at scale, offering new solutions, energy efficiency products, etc., is a big opportunity. So we are really accelerating their journey. And other, I would say, is we are going to explore new business models. I think more and more every company will have sustainability goals, the climate crisis. So we are really exploring digitally enabled business models. If you look at all these, I think COVID is really accelerating these trends. And this is where we see the cloud strategy acceleration is extremely critical for us to deliver on digital transformation.
Thank you so much, Sanjeev. Same question to Interpol. Clearly, you and your team have laid the groundwork for this, and certainly this momentum move or news on Thursday is really a tribute to the work that you and your team have done in addition to the acquisition of Red Hat. But has it accelerated starting in 2020? I know you started this journey a long time ago, but have things changed since the COVID pandemic hit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm echo the sentiments of the other panelists. I would say that with COVID-19, what became very clear to people is that digital transformation is now an imperative. It's a business imperative. It has to be. Most people are working from home, right? There's no in-person interactions are down to like some minuscule fraction. And so the experience that people are going to have with a business is primarily going to be digital. So you have to move on the digital transformation as a business imperative. I think that's one real accelerant that COVID-19 brought home to everybody. I think there are other factors as well that's that's driving the acceleration. I think another one is just the advent of edge computing and how that's taking hold. And the fact, for instance, in our supply chain, we literally have hundreds of thousands of devices from all over the world, basically providing signals, information, etc. That's all that stuff is going to scale more and more. So I think that's another reason. And I think finally, the regulations and the restrictions, if you're operating globally, they are different, which then also forces you into a hybrid multi-cloud kind of scenario to be able to do all that efficiently and quickly.
Thanks, Interpol. We normally, when we do the live poll, we ask 3 questions. This time we only asked 2, and we eliminated one of them because I think one of the quotes out of a recent IBM research report was companies have up to 10 clouds and more. And we left it out because we realized not everyone knows how many clouds their companies have, how many cloud environments their companies operate in. And I kind of did it from a personal perspective and just thought, wow, I'm already using Google Drive for storage. I use Adobe Cloud for, Photoshop and for videos and photos. And when you add it all up, like I started thinking, my God, I'm using this cloud for this. And that's just on a personal level. Apply that to hundreds of thousand employees in a corporation and the public and private clouds that they're using there, it's really overwhelming. So that single pane of glass or a control tower to sort of manage everything, really appreciated all your comments on that. Let's talk about use cases, though. We had a few questions from you all. By the way, let me go before use cases. Let me get to a question by Donald Cortez at Infinitive. He asks, how do you approach organizational change in large enterprises moving to a multi-cloud approach? Thank you, Donald, for that question. Let's start with Satyam, organizational change.
Yeah, so the first thing I will say about organization change is it requires a paradigm shift, right? At a very high level comment that I would make. But if you look at what does that mean? That means one has to understand the whole business life cycle, or in oil and gas industry, I will call oil well life cycle. And as I said earlier, the complexity is significant and the value proposition is different. So you have to look at which aspect of that cloud of that oil well life cycle you want to optimize or maximize. Then based on that, you actually want to put your cloud infrastructure. That means you need the right talent. It is a combination of geophysicists. It's a combination of IT folks. I would put it in a bracket, the IT folks, because there is a lot of aspects of cloud that is needed. And then you have to bring those teams together to understand how my workflow will fit into this particular deployment, right? So that thinking process of much larger collaboration between, say, the domain experts and the technology folks is very, very important. And the other part is that how do we actually provide them the training, right? If we are talking about multi-cloud, as I said earlier, like complexity, simple complexity exists. That means all these people have to be trained into like all aspects of that cloud, whether how do you access it, how do you actually use it? If there is a challenge, how do you actually connect the data sets on different multiple clouds? So that training has to be provided. So you have to look at in what context you are doing. The cultural shift is there, and the co-innovation between the domain and the technology folks becomes very, very important. And then, of course, it's all under the umbrella of business value.
Great. Thank you, Satyam. Same question to Sanjeev. Sanjeev, you have been a chief digital and chief information officer at massive companies like General Electric, General Motors. You were a CDIO at Ingersoll Rand and now at the AES Corporation. How do you approach organizational change in such a large enterprises when moving to a multi-cloud approach?
At AES, David, last year we really articulated our digital vision and strategy that drives about a $3 billion value over the next 10 years. As part of that, right, strategy creation, we really created a couple of very important strategic we see that is a cultural transformation and really building the digital team and the capabilities. So I regularly recruited a strong digital leadership team. One of the key roles we recruited is a leader for cloud. That leader basically, was responsible right from strategy to team building and to the execution and operationalizing across the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud strategies. So we put a strong roadmap and the journey creation, and that's what we are executing. We also created strong cultural transformation, skilling up the existing resources, bringing the right resources from outside with the right balance of internal and external. So the diversity aspect of it we brought in. So we created this cloud leader a clear journey, execution, and also team and the tool set, right? Example, the security, how do we do our own security plus leverage the cloud securities from Microsoft's and Google's, etc. So we put a comprehensive, very strategic plan. That's what we are executing. The team is there. That's how we, and this team and the leader works with other digital leaders and CTOs. So we are driving the right architecture and execution across the board.
That sounds like an exciting position. Anybody out there that's looking to be, what we call it, a chief cloud officer? We have a CCO now, but sounds like an exciting position, Sanjeev. Same question to Interpol. You've been through this and you've done an excellent job. So I wonder if you have any insights on how you helped manage organizational change during the move to a multi-cloud approach. And I think it harkens back to your very first session with the IBM CDO Summit leaders during turbulent times, where you mentioned about sort of not conflating the pandemic with civil unrest, that there are different organizational leadership approaches to a pandemic that are different from social unrest or civil unrest. Just wondering, how have you managed through all this and got the company behind your efforts?
No, so I'll make, I echo the sentiments again of the panelists. One of the advantages of going last is that you hear what everybody else says, but again, the disadvantages, you don't want to repeat what's already been said. So I'll just make one point. The one thing that I do look at is, you have to approach it from a transformation lens, enterprise transformation. That's where all the outcomes, all that, the business value, all that stuff occurs. And with regard to enterprise transformation, we know that there are 4 pillars that need to move in unison, those being data, because data is at ground zero. I mean, if your data is not up to function, not up to quality, if you start pushing that out, it's going to, essentially things are going to break down. But data, technology, like the move to the hybrid multi-cloud, you're going to change technology, etc. Business process, because that has to change, otherwise there won't be any value that'll actually be affected. And then finally, the organizations, because as they start out in current state, they'll be different from what you need to be in the final state. So you've got to essentially make sure that all 4 are changing in unison. Anything gets too far ahead or too far behind, the whole thing breaks down, because it really is in that sense one chain of events that needs to unfold. And Eileen talked about that, right? She kind of alluded to it when she said, you need change agents throughout the organization. Well, that's what the change agents are doing. The change agents are making sure that all four of these are moving in lockstep so that you can actually get to that transformation.
Thank you, Interpol. We at the CDO Club have been hyper focused on digital transformation. We've done events all over the world and had chief digital officers and chief data officer experts at our summits. And overwhelmingly, the usual conversation is behavioral change, organizational change is way harder than technical change. So kudos to you all for managing through this. For our third question, I've got a kind of a bundle. We had some similar questions from a bunch of individuals, so I wanted to kind of bundle them into one question. But I want to give a shout out to the people who asked those questions. One was, this is really going to be about use cases. So one was workloads. What workloads are you seeing the most value from and extracting the most value from the data? Number two, how do you cost effectively secure and manage multiple clouds and threat detection software, et cetera? That's from Jatinder Lally, who's dialing in from Cameroon. So thank you for joining us, Jatinder. And finally, there was a question from Marcel Frew, who's from the ENEO organization, asking, doesn't a hybrid cloud platform entail greater maintenance costs? I think we all know the answer to that, but let's bundle all those up into one question on use cases. Which use cases are you prioritizing? I know Interpol spoke specifically about this, but mostly what are you seeing the most value from? And let's start with Satya.
Yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier that we talk about different phases of well life cycle. So for example, exploration is one, creating the value from that exploration data workflow is very, very important. Then operational aspects, whether it's drilling, completions, things like that. So you look at, if you can look at it as a process workflows, or you can look at the data workflows, you can decide which way you want to go, and you decide, prioritize which one you can actually maximize or optimize, right? So that's how we do. But in principle, we have to look at holistically, right? And then you slice it down and you actually address them. So in our industry, pretty much all these workflows are open for transformation. As Inder was saying, that change agents are everywhere, and that's what we have actually change agents in all these workflow, all these areas and workflows. And you have to focus on all of them at a different. Some will go at faster pace, some will go at a slower pace, and will require a different complexity of these multi-cloud deployments, so to say. It's not like a single solution everywhere, even though it's called cloud. But again, as I said, depending on what industry, what country we are talking about, it could be very different. So we focus on pretty much wherever the business will take us and where we can learn in short. One is create value in the shortest possible time and then scale it up. That is the key. Otherwise, you can have petabytes of data and you don't generate value. I think in the Paul was saying that data quality becomes a critical thing, and that's a foundation, right? So you do a small pilot or whatever proof of value, and then you expand on it.
Thank you, Satyam. Same question, Sanjeev. What use cases are you prioritizing, and what's the one that's extracting the most value for you at AES?
We looked at two major strategic areas. One is about data and AI. The second is enterprise applications. If you look at data and AI aspects, right, there are 2-3 work streams we are working in. One, we generate a lot of electricity. We have plants. We are making every plant, including wind farm, solar farm, storage, connected, analytically optimized. We have clear roadmap. That's what we are executing on that. That drives about 10 to 15% efficiency, which is significant in this industry. The second is we do a lot of trading of energy into the market. Now we are driving AI augmented trading, whether do you trade day ahead or real time, right? So that's another one significant revenue increase for us. That's another particular work stream within the data and AI we are executing already on the cloud. Third is about customer experience and customer insights and really driving personalization at scale. That's a completely data rich. So we are really customer centric, understanding the insight and really getting to segment of one. That's the kind of pipeline we are executing. Fourth, I would say is our grid operations. If you look at grid operations, right, one of the very interesting use cases is predictive. Everything is about predictive maintenance. We're also looking at is based on the past historical storms, can we predict where the damage may occur? How fast can you restore it, right? So these kind of use cases. So for all these areas, we have a clearly identified, we created called the pipeline of opportunities and executing that pipeline where we would do the delivery of the value every quarter. That's how we are approaching on the data and AI.
Fantastic. Thank you, Sanjeev. And Inderpal, we got about a minute left. I know you covered use cases in your session. Did you have any other use cases you might want to add to that?
Well, I think, I echo the sentiments that were presented. And, as you pointed out, I did talk about specific use cases in my opening segment. I just want to bring forward one opportunity. I mean, it's a use case, but it's an opportunity. It's kind of meeting that holy grail of enterprise-wide innovation. So the yardstick that I've set to myself is I want to be in a situation where, because we've created this data and AI enablement platform for IBM. I want to be in a situation where I can pick any one of our 350,000 employees, and they're able to very, very quickly identify where the data that's pertinent to their job resides, how to infuse AI into what they're doing. All that stuff should happen very, very fast. And I think once you're able to do it at scale like that, no matter what the level of the employee is, because there are many, decisions that are made at the lower levels that turn out to be extremely important as you move forward. And you literally have hundreds of thousands of those decisions being made every day. But these things have so far been quite hard in terms of access to data. People spend a lot of time trying to access data, then they find it's not clean. How to apply AI to it is another, whole different ballgame. How to make sure then that the AI is not biased. There's so much complexity in all this. So the yardstick I've set myself for enterprise-wide innovation, pick any employee, and they're able to rapidly go to this catalog that spans all our hybrid, hundreds of thousands of data sources that they can appropriately access, and then that they're able to essentially utilize AI on. And I think that's now within our grasp, that kind of thinking, right? I think it was absolutely unattainable some time ago, but with this hybrid multi-cloud setup, it's now within our grasp to start going after that type of aspirational yardstick and push it. And I think that'll unlock enterprise-wide innovation.
Thanks, Inderpal. And thanks to everybody. I want to, most of all, thank everyone for participating. And the next program in our series is November 18th, where we're going to wrap up the key points from every session, bring back some of your favorite speakers and from previous events, and celebrate the election of the US CDO Club Chief Data Officer of the Year Award for 2020. But now for closing comments, I'd love to hand it over to reintroduce Caitlin Halferty, Director of the AI Accelerator and Client Success at IBM. Over to you, Caitlin.
Thank you, Dave. I think you hit the high points. I just wanted to thank you again, Sachin and Sanjeev, for joining us and lending your expert insights. And of all of the questions that came in during the chat, I was monitoring closely. We actually touched on the majority of them. So they included things like business drivers in your multi-cloud approach, which you both touched on, Inderpal as well, prioritization of use cases and resource efforts, some of the security and trust concerns. So we got most of them. If we missed any, we'll certainly capture them and make sure we get a response back out to the community. But I can see this has been one of our most well-attended events of the 6 that we're running. So thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate all of the great conversation today. I've certainly added some use cases to my portfolio, which I appreciate. And thank you again. Look forward to seeing everyone in November.